Welcome to a new episode of Frontity Talks. We are trying a new format now. Normally it's Juanma and myself doing this, but we felt that maybe technical stuff like this doesn't really lend itself so much to the conversational format. So we're going to try a more presentational type format for these Frontity Talks. Let us know what you think, whether you prefer this format or whether you prefer the more conversational format where Juanma and I present together that we've done in previous episodes. So yeah, let us know what you think. Comment below or just tweet with the hashtag Frontity hashtag and let us know what you think. Okay, so one topic that comes up quite a bit in the community forum is fetching the menu from WordPress. Now, WordPress puts quite a lot of content into the REST API, pages, posts, and so on, but menus is not one of the things that is added to the REST API. Now, I guess the motivation behind these requests in the community forum is to make the menus content editable within WordPress, which is kind of the default behavior in WordPress, that a content editor can add a new menu item if there's a new page and so on. But with Frontity, that's not quite so easy. And normally, if you look at something like Mars theme, you'll see the menu is kind of hard-coded in frontity.settings.js. So I guess the idea is people want to be able to get rid of the hard-coded thing, which isn't very friendly for non-coders, so that the menus can be edited within WordPress by non-technical people. So the challenge then is how do we get the menu from WordPress into the REST API so that it can be consumed by Frontity? The first thing you're going to need is to get the menu data into the REST API. And there's a plugin that you can use called WP REST API v2 menus. And that adds any menus into the REST API. So install that and activate it. And then you could go to, okay, I'm using a local WordPress install here for my as my data source. It's WP menu test. So if I install that, and then the endpoint that the plugin gives you is WP-JSON. Now it's auto-filled it for me. That's good. WP-JSON menus v1 menus, and that'll show all the menus in my WordPress install. And then I can choose any one of these. So I could say all pages and add that there. And then I got to the all pages menu with each item in the menu. So you see a blog page, title, front page, about the test, and so on. Incidentally, the content I'm using on this site is the content from the WordPress theme unit test. It's always worth using this, even for Frontity. You know, this was designed to be used by WordPress theme developers, and it gives you all kinds of edge cases to test your theme and make sure your theme can handle these edge cases, things like large images, long titles, and so on. And the WordPress theme unit test is just as usable when you're developing a Frontity theme. And the theme unit test data adds a number of different menus into the WordPress admin. So you can see I've got a selection of menus. So you can see what I've got here is the all pages menu, which is this one here. And I could select, say, social menu here. And you see we've got a number of items in the social menu. So if I go over here and change all pages to the slug of that menu, which is social menu, we see we get the social menu, and we've got twitter.com, facebook.com, just as we have here. So this plugin then puts the menu data into the REST API, so we can consume it with Frontity. So how do we get Frontity to use that then? We need to create a handler for this. So what I've done is I'm using Mars theme here, by the way, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I've created a new folder called handlers, and then a file called menuhandler.js. So the handler, I've called it menu handler. The name is menus. It's got a priority of 10. And then it's got this pattern. It's got a pattern and a function. The function will execute if the pattern is matched. So if we use one of these endpoints here, so menus, social menu, for instance, that'll match there, and this function gets executed. So one of the crucial things it gets passed to it, it's an async function, by the way, because we need to await a couple of things. It gets some params, one of which is the slug or whatever you define here that gets passed in. I'm console logging it. So you can see if I just bring up the console here, and if I go to the page and I just refresh that, you can see the console.log there. So we can see what we've got in params. It's an object with just one property, the slug, which I'm deconstructing there into a variable called slug. Then we go and get the data from that endpoint. So you can see we actually put the endpoint here, menus v1 menus, which matches the endpoint that the WP REST API menus plugin adds, and then the menu that you want to get. That then fetches the data from the REST API. We parse the JSON to get the object, which will basically be all of this, will be what is in menu data. And then we add the menu items to the source data. And we use the link, whatever link gets passed. So if I console.log the link here, save that. And then we can see this is what the link is, menu all pages there. And then we populate the object in state.source.data. We add all the data items that we got in the JSON, and we give it an isMenu property true. So over here, if I go and look in the in this frontity.state.source, and we go and look at what we've got here in the data, so we can see for menu all pages, we've got the items, which is what was in menu data. So you can see all of that. And the isMenu property is true, which matches to that. So we've then got that in the state. Apart from the handler, the other thing we need to do is in index.js, our root level index.js, we need to import menu handler from components handlers menu handler. If we look at menu handler, that gets exported there. So we can import that in. And then we need to add it to an array of handlers in our source property. This, I've only got one handler, so the array only has one item. And then to actually fetch the data, we put a before SSR function that then fetches, and then the path you want to fetch. So I'm going to say all pages here. And because that's not an endpoint in the normal WordPress REST API, because the plugin is using its own endpoint, that is menus v1 menus. This won't actually fetch anything, but it matches. So menu all pages will match this handler pattern, menu, and then whatever slug you use. So because that then matches, this gets executed, and then this bit does the fetch of the actual data. So the reason this has to be an async is because you have to await the fetching of the data, and then response.json returns a promise, so you need to await that as well. So that's the handler. You import it into index.js, add it to the source handlers array, and then in your before SSR, do a fetch with the slug that you want, which will cause the handler to run and actually fetch the data. And that then puts it into the state there. And so we've got an array of items, which is in fact our menu. So you've got a blog post, front page, about the tests. So all the same stuff that we saw earlier. Okay. So we now need to get this stuff into our theme. So we'll use nav.js. And in the nav component, we pass in the state, and then we can do state.source.get menu all pages. So we're getting this menu all pages, which is an array of the menu items, which we can then just map over and display in the page content. And as you can see, they display there. Now, if so we saw we had different menu options in our WordPress backend. We had different menus. So I could change this, say, to social menu. If I save that, that's actually going to break the site until I change it here as well. Social menu. And now if I refresh here, it all works again. But we've now got a different menu. We've now got the social menu. And if we look at frontity.state.source in our console and look at data, we see we've now got social menu there with the 5 items Got Twitter. Facebook, all the ones corresponding to the menu we see displayed here, which is being displayed by nav.js. So it's fetching that object from the state and then mapping over the array to display each item. Okay, but we had to change it in two places. We had to change social menu here and social menu here. So let's put a property on our theme. Let's call it menu URL and give it the value all pages. And then we can use that here. And use state.theme.menu URL there. And in fact, we can also then use that in our nav.js here. And now if I save that, that's because I missed off the dollar. Let's put that back on and refresh that. And now you see by using that the value here, and then if I just change that, say, to social menu, then and save that and refresh here, then you can see I can just with one option I can use any other menu. So if I go back here to menus v1 menu, so I can see what menus we've got. I can see I've also got a main menu, so I could plug that in here. As well. And that will then just change everything to a different menu when I refresh that. Okay, so at the moment we are just seeing a single level of menu, but if I just change this back to the all pages menu, so we've got the all pages. If we go and look at this state here, under data, menu all pages, and we look at the items, we see that some of them are just like front page, for instance, is just a menu item. But about the tests, which is the this one here, about the test, you can see that's got child items. So we've got nested menus available as well. So let's just look at displaying those. Actually, if we go back to the nav.js here, I can hide that now. We don't need that. I've actually prepared this in advance. So if I comment that out and uncomment this block, you can see we're now seeing the submenu here. So what's going on here? I'm just doing exactly the same as I did earlier. We're getting the menu. In this case, it's going to be all pages. And then we're mapping over each item, but we're checking whether it's got child items or not. If it hasn't, then we just display it. If it has, then we display the top level item and map over the child items. And then all we need to do is style it, and you can use CSS in JS to style. So I'm using a nav item with child. I've got a background pink so we can see it. And the child menu itself is in background light blue. Obviously, this needs more styling. You want that to be hidden, but there are loads of tutorials out on the web for how to do drop-down menus with CSS. And that is basically it for fetching menus from WordPress. So to summarize, you need to install the WordPress REST API v2 menus, which is available here. I'll put this link in the description below. That adds the menus to the REST API, and then you need to create a handler. Add the handler to the library source handlers array, and do a before SSR, and ensure that the whatever you put there matches with the pattern in the handler. That puts all the data into the state for the menu, which you can then consume in your nav component. All of this code is in a repo here. Frontity examples, fetch menu. Let me just expand this out so we can see that better. But again, I'll put this link in the description as well. Okay, let us know what you think of this new format, whether you prefer this more presentational style or whether you prefer the more conversational style that we used to do. Next time, Juanma will be here presenting another topic. So for now, it's goodbye and happy coding with Frontity. Bye.